Okay, so first thing, when we started this class, okay, I'm actually really happy that so many people are still here. Why is this first test such a butt kicker?
Vocab.
Vocab. There's just a lot of words that you have to know. And the more that you go over this first test, the more that you understand this first test, the easier it is to understand the next part. And so should you go back and review this again and again and again? Yes. So this is something that I'm trying to teach my daughter with her math class. She goes, well, we already learned that. I don't want to learn that again. In math, why do you have to keep going over the basic concepts? Because the complicated concepts use the basic complex concepts. And so it's the same thing, is that we're going to start doing stuff in here that's adding complexity to what you've already learned. Okay, so I've got a couple different animations to show you first, but the first part of this next chapter is all about genetics and evolution. We've kind of talked a lot about genetics already. How did genetics work? Bless you.
Thank you.
How does your DNA work? Okay, so it's a strand of proteins, deoxyribonucleic acid. But what it does is they have pairs. There's two of them. When they unwind, what happens? O&A. ONA. Okay. What does it do when it unstrands? When it unwinds? Oh no. Someone studied this. I'm going to draw this in a different color. We talked about this in class. This is the worst video ever. That guy's accent sounds like Schwarzenegger from the next room. Doesn't it? California. Okay, sorry. So, this is kind of oversimplified, and I apologize for those people who study biology, because you're like, well, it's so much better than that. Not to me. Okay, so let me just go through this really quickly and point to the PowerPoint, because that's how teachers work. What is this? DNA. What does the DNA do? Splits apart. Part of it dangles outside of the nucleic membrane. RNA copies itself to it. When it copies itself to it, it goes in, what are ribosomes? You can see it in your head, but they in the endoplasmic reticulum, they grab a hold of certain amino acids. Every 3 sequences, base pairs, equals a gene. Every 3. And the combination of those 3 determine what amino acid sticks to the ribosome. As it goes through, at the end of the gene, there's a thing called a telomere. At the end of the telomere, there is that says, stop here. And the genes and the amino acids and the proteins stop. What happens as you get older to your genes? Mine just keep getting bigger every year, but that's not important. Okay, but my wife was folding my jeans the other day, and she's holding them up. I'm like, are they really that big? Yeah. Anyway, so my son and daughter both got in my jeans. Very disappointing. Yeah, it's awkward. Moving on. So that's not the kind of genes we're talking about, but I'm just feeling sad. So the gene sequence determines the amino acid sequence. What happens to your genes when you get older? They deteriorate. And as a result, what happens to the codes that they produce?
They're less accurate.
They're less accurate. So there's more mistakes. You grow hair in places that you shouldn't grow hair, like for some reason on the outside of your ears. Has no biological advantage to grow a hair. I had like a 3-inch long hair growing out of the top of my ear at one point. My son goes, "That is so cool. Can we name it?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "Boink. Why would it grow there?" The old theory is it's called monkey hair. As men get old, their hair falls off their forehead and grows on their back. Like my stupid neck is all fuzzy now. It never used to be fuzzy. What? I don't know. Ooh. Okay, so the whole idea is that as you get older, your genes slowly start falling apart. So how do you get your genes? Yeah. So what happens is you get your genes from your parents. Don't think of your parents and these words together because it's creepy. However, but what happens is where do most of the DNA material in the fetus come from? Who's most important? Mom. Why is most of your genetic material important from your mom? Okay. Mom's DNA, how many people in my developmental class in here? Okay, so in the video that talks about the prenatal environment with the baby growing, whatever the mom does, the baby does. The mom's DNA is mixed constantly with the baby's DNA through the placenta. So the mom's biology influences the baby the most. When you actually look at, I'm going to write not to scale here. The mom provides, nice, most of the DNA. The dad provides tiny amounts of material. The DNA is the same, but the amount of material that the baby is made out of, very small amounts of male DNA adds to the female. Most of the egg is what makes the baby. Only thing the male adds is the genetic material. The prenatal environment, does it shape the way the baby grows? Yes. There's a lot of research with autism trying to find out why would a baby become autistic? And one of the theories is that older parents are more likely to have autistic kids. Well, it could be that the genes aren't quite, it's like trying to, if you rip a nice, a piece of paper you cut it and make a really nice smooth rip down the paper. When you're young, your genes replicate very nicely. When you're old, it's like an old sweater trying to pull it apart. The DNA goes everywhere. So that's one theory. The other theory that they're also looking at is that maybe the gene sequencing, a lot of times they're blaming the older males. That the older male genes aren't as good. So maybe you've got the sperm with the extra tail sitting on it. With a baseball hat. Okay, because maybe the older sperm are not producing good genetic material. Can somebody think of another reason why autism would spread? Yeah. Nice. Okay, so drug use, but a lot of people with autistic babies don't use drugs. And a lot of people who use drugs have children with deficits, but autism generally isn't one of them. Yeah. So it turns out we have two friends of ours. Mom, which I can't remember her name. Tom is the dad. We go mountain biking with him. He is an engineer. He's extremely quirky. Okay? Mom was a ballerina and a ballerina instructor. Nobody's more quirky than a ballerina instructor. Okay? So they're both awkward and quirky. Why did they get married later in life? They're both awkward and quirky. So this would be a really fun thing for someone who works with autistic kids. Are their parents awkward and quirky?
Occasionally, yes.
Yeah, occasionally, yes, which sucks with genetics, because human genetics don't work nearly as nice as fruit fly genetics.
A lot of times, too, it seems to be the last child in the family that I've noticed.
So as they're older,
Or if the first child has autism, they're more likely to have their next child with autism.
right, yeah, and the severity increases with subsequent generations. And so then that's where the old egg hypothesis comes in, or old sperm technically. They're more focused on the sperm for some reason, not old eggs. But then the other side of it is that if you have the genes for autism, what happens if you have that word over here with someone else who has autism? Increases probability of having an autistic child. And so when we start looking at this thing called heritability, the heritability rates of autism, it's kind of hard to study because back in the 1970s, back in my day, but in the 70s, what was the cause of autism? It wasn't vaccines. That was so 90s. Yeah. They did. But they recognized the disorder, but it was caused by cold parenting. And the fact that the parent didn't truly love the child is what caused autism. Very Freudian. So think about that. If you have a kid with autism, what does that say to the social world around you? You don't really love your kid, do you? And they blame the parents for the child's autism. So what did parents with autism do with their child? Hide them. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's sad, but at the same time, you can actually see if autism, follow the logic, if autism has genetic roots, why would a parent be considered a cold parent? Because they have the same similar qualities that produce autism, which is inability to show emotion back, inability to form tight physical bonds, which are integral to developing healthy fetuses. But if you don't form strong emotional bonds and your fetus doesn't build emotional bonds, both parties are very happy sitting next to each other, not cuddling. So, anyway, so there's when you try to look at heritability in humans, it's really complicated. It's really complicated. Anybody ever done the Punnett square thing with the wrinkly peas and smooth peas and who cares? Well, Mendel figured this out. He's a monk. He's bored. He's pollinating peas. Okay? But what it turns out that can you actually make exact predictions with very simple genetics? Somebody in here has done the corn lab, the genetic recessive corn lab. All right, check this out. It's not what I want to show, but Lab Manual, Exercise 4, Palomar University. Okay? Okay. So, biology used to do this. What you do is you buy these kernels of corn. You very carefully extract kernels of corn. And what do you know? What kind of kernels do you get? What is this one right here? Smooth and purple, technically. Smooth and purple. What's that one? Wrinkled and yellow. There's a wrinkled purple. Where's a wrinkled purple? There's a wrinkled purple. So it turns out that these are not caused by pests, so these are not caused by drying out a particular way. What this is caused by is genetics. Each seed of this corn plant has a different combination of the parent's genetics. So you draw out the square. They should see. There it is. And what should you find? 1, 2, 3, 4. How many different types of kernels should you find? 4. Okay? Purple, smooth, 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 purple, smooth. Purple, purple, smooth, smooth. Recessive. You're going to find one purple, smooth one, or whatever that is.
Why are the purple smooths different capitalization?
regress, oh boy. Dominant versus recessive traits. Computer guy. Okay. So dominant traits are if you have a capital letter, you have that trait. And if you have two lowercase letters, you have that trait. Two lowercase, two recessives make a dominant. Yeah. Moving on. So it turns out that when I used to teach stats over in the biology building, we went over to them doing the corn lab. And when they did the corn lab, we did this statistical analysis to find out, was this Mendelian little square? That little square means that you should find a certain percentage of these particular things. So we calculated the mathematical percentage you should find compared to the actual count they did find. Okay, without going into too much annoying detail, even though I already have, you get the genetics you should. Mendel was right. The problem is human genetics is a lot more complicated. I wrote up the ski lift with a lady who studies fruit fly genetics. Why do we care about fruit fly genetics? She just got tenured at UC Irvine studying fruit fly eyeball genetics. They're very small. But why care about fruit flies? They have a very short lifespan, high reproductive rate. We can get generations in a month. Generations in a month. If you want to study generations of humans, you have to go to Iceland. Why Iceland or Sweden or Finland? Socialized medicine. What do we have from Finland from 1948, 49 all the way till today? Well, yes, but they also have ridiculously high taxes. That's not important. Doctors make the same as teachers. Welcome to socialism. It works because it's too freaking cold, no one cares. Moving on. Okay, people who do care, leave. Okay, but there's something else. We have health records. All the doctors and all the hospitals are free. So everybody goes to the same doctor, everybody goes to the same hospital. So we have medical records from 1940 all the way till today. So could I look back at your family histories? Hey, Jasmine's family's got alcoholism. Look, her grandpa had alcoholism. Her great-grandpa had alcoholism. Her great-great-grandpa had alcoholism. Do you think it's genetic? I blame the women folk on the family. No. But so we can look back at the genetic disorders that people have, and you can trace genetic behaviors that people have. Fruit flies are great because we can keep testing the fruit fly over and over and over again, breed a new generation, mix two DNAs together. There's a program called CRISPR. I do not understand how it works, but I can take your DNA and I can put it in this machine and it edits your DNA. Well, wouldn't it be great, though? Like, I've got bad liver, bad pancreas, and bad gallbladder. My dad gave me that. I don't drink very much, but if I eat too much trail mix, my stomach goes boop and gets bloaty. Trail mix is good for you. Well, unless you have a dodgy gallbladder, then what happens if you eat too much nut meat or too much fat in general? You can't digest it. So my stomach goes boop. Gets all full of liquid. So like the other day, I ate a bunch of trail mix because I can't stop eating. Anyway, and my stomach, sure enough, by the afternoon, my stomach was out here. It's like, come on, seriously. It'd be better if I was like doing shots of bourbon in my office or something, but then have my stomach distended, then I'd have a reason. But no, it's trail mix. Those really salty smoked almonds from Trader Joe's. Oh, okay, back in. Okay, so genetically, if I could go in and fix my digestive plumbing, I could still eat more crap. I don't have to watch what I eat anymore. Wouldn't that be great? I still don't watch what I eat, but anyway, not important. Okay, so, but the big picture is that human genetics are a little bit more complicated. Why is it scary about this? Okay, so CRISPR, they're fresher than other babies. They So what is CRISPR again? Gene editing tool. So let's say, what color does most Chinese people's eyes? What are color most Chinese people's eyes? Dark brown. They're mostly dark brown. So could I go in and edit the DNA to make more recessive traits for eye color? Yeah. So eye color is not like smooth or wrinkly peas. Eye color works on a lot of different variables. It's like 5 or 6 different genes that produce eye color. Blue eyes are generally recessive. Brown eyes are generally dominant. If you have a lot of brown eyes in your trait group, are you likely to get blue eyes as a child? No, my friend Henry is African American. Most African Americans have darker colored eyes. However, due to the nature of humans, every so often a slightly different ethnicity will sneak into the gene pool. And what can happen to a child? Yeah, every so often a African American child will be born with blue eyes or even a really cool lavender color, like a kind of slightly purpley blue color. It's really cool. Okay? Yeah, no luck. Okay, so I'm a sucker for brown eyes, so anyway. But at the same time, is that when you see that if we can go edit your kids, so could we make a bunch of Chinese babies with blonde hair and blue eyes? Why are you shaking your head? Exactly, it's not right. So yeah, you just go find the gene sequence. Where do we find lots of blonde hair, blue eyes? I would go Sweden or Finland. Sweden, there's a lot of women in Sweden have blonde hair and blue eyes. It's a very common trait amongst Swedes. There are dark-haired people from Sweden, but they're more likely blonde. Our friend is Finnish. She has blonde hair, blue eyes. All of her friends, blonde hair, blue eyes. Her mom has dark hair, but her dad has blonde hair and blue eyes. And so because there's so many recessive traits in that population, they're all blonde hair, blue eyes. It's the same thing when you go to China. You see black hair, brown eyes. And it's very rare to see a blonde Chinese person, or a blonde Korean person. Okay? So, but if we go in and CRISPR these and add this to the population, what can happen? Well, you could change that genetic strain. Okay? But what else are you changing? This is why you shake your head. This is not right. Anybody remember? Anybody hear about Franken salmon? Okay, so there's a big movement against genetically modified food. So back in early O's, they started breeding salmon, captive wild-bred salmon. They started breeding them with species of trout. Okay, and by making these hybrids of these species of trout, there are certain types of trout, like there's the brook trout, and there are all sorts of different types of trout. But there are some trout that grow extremely fast. One of the ones is a cutthroat trout. It grows really, really fast because the cutthroat trout eats other fish. That's its primary food source. So why would it grow very fast? Well, it's eating a lot of protein, but you actually get more protein from bugs than you get from other fish. But if you don't grow fast, who eats you? The other cutthroat trout that are growing faster eat the small cutthroat trout. They don't care. So the survival of the biggest. And that's why cutthroat trout are really fun to catch. I've caught a bunch in June Lake, and they're big. I mean, some are like this big. You catch a big trout out of a lake. Big old fish, because what do they spend their time doing? Eating each other. And the one that's left is the biggest one. So they mix the salmon in the ocean with these cutthroat trout genes, and they get what's called a Franken salmon. Then they edit the genes so that the fish grows faster. So you put the big fish in a big pen out in the ocean, you just throw herring into it, and what do the fish do? get really big. You pick the net up, you put it over on the truck, and send it off to the meat market. A normal batch of salmon would weigh 1,000 pounds. These super salmon, or Franken salmon, weigh 2,000 pounds for the same amount of food. Good? What if they get out in the wild? They take over the natural salmon's life cycle. So who cares? Well, the salmon. Who else cares? Our ecosystems are balanced based on non-genetically modified things. What happens when cows escape? Do they survive well? No, they get hit in the road. You do see a lot of deer hit in the road, but you don't realize how many deer are around. Most of them can avoid getting hit in the road. But if you have a bunch of cows get out, they just stand there. Moo. A lot of them will even starve to death because, well, there's no grain. And they need the high density food, like processed food, in order to grow. So, wild cows? No. Anyway, so the idea of when you domesticate something, what are you doing with it?
Taking away its wild.
Well, you're breeding out the wildness. Selective reproduction. Okay, selective reproduction. So what we start to do is there's natural selection. There's natural selection, and then there is artificial selection. So, how do you decide? I'm going to not finish that sentence. How do you decide to reproduce? Well, some people make bad choices, and alcohol's involved. But how do you decide? How do you choose a partner? Well, yeah, we have these stupid things called human emotions that get involved with this, but we also have hormones. Do animals pay attention to the romance side of having a baby? No. It's really great. The crows on our campus are wonderful creatures. Crows mate. They don't mate for life. They mate for who's ever still alive. So there's the two big mating pairs on campus. If you see them, if you're walking by me on campus, I'll probably point them out. I point them out to everybody I'm walking by on campus. Sorry. But the mom is about this big now, really big, healthy crow. The dad, the previous dad was a very pretty bird, except someone took a shot at it with a shotgun, so it was missing a bunch of feathers. He was kind of mangy looking, but he still got around just fine. He was around for years, and then he's disappeared. She's got a new guy now. And what's interesting is that you can see the parent crows because they keep growing slowly as they get older. And even so she's probably 10 years old now at most. It's very good. And she's got a nice gig here on campus. She lives on campus. She spends all of her time on campus. You guys are pigs. You leave food everywhere, so it's perfect. So then the babies all follow around. So when she mates for life, what does that mean for life? If she finds a suitable, she constantly will mate, once a year with them. It's like being married. Anyway, it's like she mates with them once a year and then has their clutch of eggs, but then the husband sticks around the rest of the time, looking at his watch, going, it's almost spring. Okay. There's a great Garrison Keillor joke that goes with that, but I won't. Anyway, so the dad, why does the dad stick around? Does he help with the babies? Yeah. If the dad didn't help with the babies, would the mom mate with them in the spring? No. She will chase him away. And so the dad helps out, brings food, helps protect the babies, helps distract predators, does all sorts of things because if he sticks around, his genetics get passed on. It's not because he's doing it because he's a good guy. He's doing it because his genetics survive. And the mom wants the dad to stick around because if he sticks around, she has help. So this mutual parenting is actually reinforced. Ever anybody watch March of the Penguins? It's pretty much the synopsis of the whole movie. But when you think about March of the Penguins, what do the mom and dad penguin do? They take turns suffering for their stupid little baby, standing on the cold ice, putting it on top of their feet so it doesn't freeze. But then they take turns, and the parents that, you think there's some dads that go, screw this, I'm going to get some fish and leave the egg. Yeah, they don't get a lady next spring. Because they left the egg. Everybody's looking at them going, shamed. Yeah. Oh, crap! Oh, crap! Yeah, classic. It's like the dad when he's talking to someone, looks around, where's the baby? Crap! Oh, so this natural selection, it's very complicated. It's not just for physical traits. It's actually for a lot of social traits as well. Humans seem to be attracted to things that are similar to us. This was just on the radio yesterday. People who are liberal, who do they tend to date and marry? Liberals. People who are conservative tend to date and marry conservatives. Why? It's like the crow. If you have someone that you can interact with and share and be with, it's easier. Physical attraction lasts a short period of time until you get to know someone. No matter how shiny the object, if they're irritating, what happens? It's over. You know what? No. Then you text them later when you forget how irritating they are, but that's not important. Okay? But it turns out that a relationship that you stick with, people have very similar personalities. And so maybe our species is evolving as far as personalities go. Are humans evolving as far as the way our bodies are? No. Humans haven't changed in 10,000 years, according to most fossil records. But what has changed? The concepts that we have changed over these time. And how do you evolve a concept? Well, sharing ideas. You change your thinking by sharing ideas with other people. If you share ideas, you have similar ideas with other people, then that's how we generally select our mates. But what's a problem with the human random selection? One of my students a bunch of years ago, in my intro class, we always do a thing about stress right around the end of the semester. And it was right after Halloween, and we're talking about all the symptoms of stress. And if you have these symptoms of stress, I always make the joke, oh, you could be pregnant because your body goes into all these symptoms. And I'm like, haha, everybody laughs. And then like 2 classes later, she comes back, and the student goes, it's not funny. She was pregnant. Her Halloween costume was a success. She went as a Starbucks barista. That's all she wore was her little Starbucks apron and fancy underpants. Classy. Oh, fancy underpants. Yeah, tee-hee, yeah. Ugh. My daughter's going to be that old fruit. Okay, moving on. Okay. So the thing is that for natural selection, sometimes it's going to be random. Is random good for genes? Yes. Yeah, so a lot of animals, a lot of species on Instagram yesterday, there's a picture of a crab munching things. Did you see that?
Yeah.
What was it eating? Babies. Not hers. She was going up the beach to lay eggs. On the way, a bunch of little eggs that have hatched are coming down the beach. So she's like, cool, snacks. And munching the eggs on the way down. Well, the crab doesn't care. The crab is looking for food. Why is she looking for food? Not she's hungry, so that she can have a healthier, so she can be stronger, so she can lay more eggs. If she lays more eggs, more babies survive, so that the next crab walking up will eat some of hers. But it's like, it's funny, but that's the way the world really is. The world is this bunch of randomness happening. What makes the little fish or the crab survive? An adaptation. With natural selection, there's just random mating. But then, with some luck, well, okay, what is luck? Yeah, it's just a random happenstance of events. But if an animal, if the like the weather right now is changing, if climate's changing, and our heater's broken right now, not good. Okay, but so if this last year our electric bills we were negative because we have solar. We were negative all winter because last winter was warm. Our heater never came on last winter. This year our electric bill is $180 or something crazy because our stupid heater came on. And now we find out our heater's broken. Great. Anyway, but so if you have an animal that has a good adaptation skills, like humans with my new Patagonia shirt that's very fluffy on the inside and soft, yay. Okay, am I going to survive better when it's a cold winter if I have extra clothing to wear? Yeah, because I can adapt. But what about a lot of little songbirds and a lot of the insects in our neighborhood that don't like the cold? Well, they can't adapt. Because how long does adaptation last or take? Generations. That's why things like cockroaches and mice adapt very quickly. Anybody know the standard gestation of a rat? How long does it take for a rat to have a litter of pups? Yeah, 21 days. About a month. Okay? In 4 days after they give birth, they can get pregnant again. So while they're lactating and while they're raising the pups are weaned at about postnatal day 12 or 13. So by the time the mom starts feeling uncomfortable from being pregnant again, what is her little pups doing? What does weaning mean? They're not nursing anymore. So they go off in the world, and they're officially rats at 12 days of age. They're cute, they're small, we call them popcorn rats. They bounce. It's like little kids. They don't actually move, they just move in spurts. They're very cute. Okay, so they generally hang out with the mom until they're about 20 days of age. The mom kicks them out about 20 days of age. Wait a second, how many days till the babies are born?
1 more day.
4 more days, because it takes 4 days to go into estrus. If they mate again, then they have 21 days. At 20 days, the mom kicks them out. They're on their own. Then the mom has another litter of rats. 4 days later, pregnant. So, and how many rats can have it per litter? 10 to 12 standard. 10 to 12 standard. And if you have more than 12, the mom's only got 8 nipples, so what happens? The non-feisty ones die off pretty quickly. And mom will go pick them up and leave them somewhere, and you hear a little squeaking. What is that squeaking? And there's a little baby rat. That means you have a lot of rats somewhere nearby if you find just a single baby rat. What eats a lot of rats? Birds, cats, snakes, lizards, insects. Everybody eats baby rats because there's a lot of them. You ever wonder where all those snakes, you hear snakes all over the place? Moving on. So how does a mouse or a rat respond to a changing environment? Have more babies. Are the flies in our neighborhood used to be on a 12-day gestation cycle? They're on a 6-day gestation cycle now. Doesn't make sense. Flies lay their eggs on spoiling food products, sometimes poo. What happens how long does it take for the maggots to hatch? Oh, come on. Gotta take more environmental biology. It takes 3 days for the eggs to hatch and they turn little maggots. It takes normally 12 days for those maggots to pupate and turn back into flies. But why have we bred the flies, especially in our neighborhood, to be on a 6-day cycle, not a 12-day cycle? What goes out once a week? Trash. So At the dump, you have a lot of 12-day cycle critters. But in our neighborhood, we have a bunch of 6-day cycle neighborhood critters. Because? So the ones that pupate early stay in the neighborhood. The ones that pupate late go to the dump. You can genetically look at the difference in the pupation rates of these said maggots. Yeah.
Didn't our gestation time, like, wasn't it longer before we evolved?
Possibly. It's hard to test on that because you can look at bones and you look at teeth and you can look at how long people have been pregnant by the size of the fetus. But I would suggest that we pay a lot more attention to gestation now than we used to. Babies used to just come out when they wanted to. But does that happen in our society as much anymore? No, in a lot of countries, especially a lot of third world countries, they automatically schedule C-sections. Not third world's not the right thing. Lower, underdeveloped countries, less developed countries, different countries. Like, Brazil is definitely not less developed or third world, but most women have C-sections in Brazil. Because it's seen as lower class to have a vaginal birth. Well, just lower class. And what's interesting is that all of a sudden we start having artificial selection. So anybody know how women mostly died up until about the 1960s? Childbirth. Childbirth killed a lot of women because, luckily I don't have a uterus. I heard it's hard. Don't know. Anyway, but again, so a lot of women died during childbirth, but now is dying during childbirth very common. Not because of C-section and because of hospital care and because of conscious awareness. Being in the hospital doesn't necessarily prevent death, but having a competent doctor does help prevent death. Do you need a doctor or can you use midwife? Midwives are just as successful as doctors. Yeah, because it's not about the training they have, it's about the experience they have with the training. Anyway, that's human sexuality. We talk a lot about midwives. Okay, and my friend who is a doula used to come and talk to class. She is a birth coach. It's like, here, how you stretch a vagina. Because if you stretch it properly before you give birth, guess what? You don't tear. Yeah, Google it. Not in the library. Okay. It's for healthy reasons, it's okay, I suppose. But yeah. Okay, moving on. So again, I got to look at my little clock here. Okay, so we're right where we want to be. So now this is kind of fluffy stuff, and I'm not going to ask too many questions on the test about it, but how does our brain grow the same way? Okay, so I got two little videos for you. This one first. You have a rat in your garage? Guess what? There's a lot of rats in your garage.
Shortly after fertilization, the fertilized egg or zygote begins dividing. By about 4 days after fertilization, a solid ball of cells called a morula forms. The cells continue to multiply, and by day 5, the cells separate into two groups, the inner cell mass, which will become the embryo, and an encompassing sac called the trophoblast, which will develop into the placenta.
Okay.
Trophoblast cells.
Okay. So, we skipped the whole sex part, sorry. Okay, we'll just get right to the important part. Fertilization occurs. Sperm, egg get together, there's music, and they start splitting and dividing. So when the cell first goes, this part becomes the baby. This is the baby. What does the outer part become? The placenta. I never knew this. Even though I taught this class for years, I finally saw a prenatal animation, probably back when I was teaching human sexuality. We were talking about this. And I'm like, wait a second. So the placenta is a part of the baby. The placenta is a part of the baby. So what the placenta, how many of you ever seen one? It's pretty neat. Okay, so I'm not going to put up a picture here because it's some people would find it gross. Okay, but what it is, it looks like a big piece of skin, and on one side, it's got, hold on. Is that where that, look how tiny it is, it's so cute. Okay, sorry. I'm going to write not to scale on that. Okay, so but what it looks like, so it looks like a flap of skin, and it's got all these little blood vessels that look like little curlicues. These little curlicue blood vessels attach to the uterine wall. No, they don't attach to the baby. They attach to the uterine wall. What attaches to the baby? The umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is this huge blood vessel transfer that goes from the wall of the uterus into the baby. Without being disgusting, I'm too late for that for this class. But if you look at your menstruate, women at the second half of your menstruation, the first half is generally clear blood. The second half is chunks of stuff. It looks just like the placenta because what's on the other side? Blood vessels, and those blood vessels grow to meet the placenta. Okay, that's take human sexuality. You can get more stuff in detail. Yeah, and so what's cool about this is that the placenta is the baby. When the placenta and the mom mix together, if the DNA of the baby doesn't match the DNA of the mom very well, the mom gets sick. Morning sickness. Morning sickness is your immune system fighting with the DNA between each other. Because does the baby's DNA mix with the mom's DNA? Yes. The baby's DNA is mixing in the placenta. Tons of cells are flowing back and forth through the blood, and it's just an amazing thing. So Lindy Brazil, as English instructor, if anybody's ever had her, I think both of her kids have been in my class. No, her younger daughter's the same age as my daughter. But Malia's been in my class. Well, it's really funny because when she was with her daughter, her second daughter, she was sick the entire pregnancy. She would have a bag of little puffy cereal, and we'll put one in her mouth and go crunch, crunch. Okay. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Okay. So she ate little Kix cereal her entire pregnancy to try to maintain nutrients. Why do you think she fights with her daughter now? She won't tell me. But it's interesting is that what if the DNA is much more like the dad than the mom in the baby? Sure. Well, no, because it doesn't quite, it means that the DNA in the baby is arguing with your DNA. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's different or it's more like the dad. It just means that there's some argument going on there. Yeah, and so it's an immune system response to the DNA of the baby getting into your body causing, and then that's in the developmental psych video, whatever the mom eats, what goes through into the placenta? The nutrients. Okay, so if you, this is really bizarre, but if you have, if anybody's ever anybody have babies in here? Oh, that was close. Okay.
Even like in the house.
No, like actually had babies. No, okay. So for guys, you're out of the picture on this, you don't get a chance to do this. But if you get to lactate, okay, lactation is a really cool thing. All the nutrients of food that you eat, where does it go? Into the breast milk. There's all these ducts with all these blood vessels on it. And what happens is whatever you eat, your liver processes all these nutrients, they go directly into the breast milk. So my wife was eating, we were having salmon, we eat salmon once a week at least, and when she pumped her breast milk out for the baby, she'd feed on one side and pump on one side, and then I would get the next feeding so she could sleep, we could rotate sleeping time. Excellent plan. Worked great for my daughter. My son didn't want a boob, only wanted boob, no bottle. So I slept the whole time, didn't care. Now, so, but it was funny because when she had salmon, what is in a lot of salmon? What color is it? Pink. Okay. What does it have a lot of? Oil, omega-3 fatty acids, oils. Salmon oils are really heavy in there. Okay, and what does it smell like? Fish. So what did the breast milk look like? Pink. And if you let it sit for a few minutes, what floated to the top? Salmon oil, a layer of salmon oil about this thick at the top of the breast milk. You're like, whoa, it went from mouth to chew to stomach to duodenum to magic and then out into the breast milk. You can take physiology and they figure out that part, but it's like, it's so mind-blowing. So you got to think about that going across the placenta. So this is what a lot of people don't get from that video in developmental, is that if the mom eats a lot of fish, does the baby smell the fish? Yes, because the baby has those, the nose receptors form relatively early in the brain, which we'll get to in a couple seconds here. And because the nose receptors form relatively early in the brain, it's not like smelling. It's not like, ooh, wafting, very nice. But what it does is that the impression of the fish is being associated with food. And when the mom's eating, does it make the baby more relaxed? Yes. Because the nutrients come feeding into the baby, and so it causes the baby's brain to go, ah. And if the fish stink is involved with the ah, what will the baby tend to like as it's older? Fish. Does their mom not eat fish when she was pregnant? Yeah. So, So what's really strange though is that a lot of women get cravings when they're pregnant. Like my wife loved the Italian dressing from the cafeteria at the school she worked at when she was pregnant. You know, that big jug of dressing, unquote, that they have at this, not the creamy kind, but just the Italian dressing. She would like get a salad every day. I'm like drooling thinking about it because it's so sour. But she used to get a salad every day at lunch just to eat that dressing when she was pregnant with my daughter. My daughter loves Parmesan cheese. Like the shaky kind, like the super salty, because what's one of the main ingredients of that cheap crap dressing? Parmesan cheese. Like last night we had a bowl of pasta. I swear my daughter's was half full of Parmesan cheese. We just got a new one, so. Okay, what's your question?
I was gonna say like when you're constantly sick, like all through the 9 months, does that mean like that your baby's not gonna have?
No, depending on if the mom is still healthy, the baby will be healthy. So my wife's sister, Robin, she was really sick with her daughter, but she made sure she got the vitamins and made sure she got the nutrients so that she wasn't malnourished. But if you are malnourished the entire time during pregnancy, the baby can have issues and the baby can have health problems because you need the nourishment. So what we need in a few minutes here, shut up. Okay. So what we need in a few minutes here is we need to, come on, let's get past the blastocyst phase. There we go. So what we start to do is that as we start going on, the baby cells start growing and they start forming different layers. I'm not going to ask you to memorize these layers. What time is it? Is it 45? 44, okay, one more minute. Okay, so, well, we're not going to get to the neural plate. We'll do that on today's Tuesday or Thursday. So, but as this is forming, what if you don't get the right nutrients? It doesn't form right. If anything goes wrong in the first 2 or 3 weeks, what happens to the embryo? Well, not even embryo yet, the blastocyst. It deforms and generally doesn't produce, doesn't make. 2/3 of all pregnancies don't stick. 2/3. Well, and out of that 2/3, only 1/3, so 2/3 don't make it, so the third left. And then only 1/3 of that make it past 12 weeks. Because there's a lot of stuff have to happen for these little fetuses to grow. Yeah, most of them don't make it. Not yet. Sorry. It's okay. But so most of the fetuses don't make it because this is a really complicated thing. And then you realize, like, wow, how come so many people get pregnant then? Never mind. Okay. Well, by accident as well. But a lot of times not planning things makes them more successful.